We're going to call this meeting of the Sumner County Board of Construction Appeals to order. It is 5 o'clock. We're going to do a roll call here first. Once I call your names, tell us your name or tell us a little bit about yourself. Just kind of get to know each other a little bit here. Wally Gillum, is that absent?
He contacted, said he's running late, but he'll be here.
John Janung.
Tell you about myself?
Just so you know, just a brief introduction.
Okay. So, a licensed engineer. I've been a licensed contractor, a codes official, and a TVA, federal government, and military.
Okay.
Nice.
Bruce Quinn.
Right here. Oh, let's see, former military electrical contractor once upon a time, and now certified real estate inspector, commercial property inspector, and own a company that does the same thing.
Barry Briley.
Barry Briley, I'm a real estate broker and vice president of a real estate firm here locally.
Brian Lynch is not here.
Not
No. Okay. Roger Smith,
Right here.
right in front of me.
Well, I'm trying to retire. Hadn't made it yet. Semi-retired. I've done a lot of consulting lately. I was a electrical contractor for years and worked for different companies. Now I'm doing consulting mostly.
All right, Mr. Moynihan.
Jim Moynihan, I got a varied background. I did sell real estate for a while. I also worked for the Illinois Department of Transportation for 12 years. I worked with engineers. My last thing before coming here was a financial advisor, so I'm used to handling financial matters and looking at statements and working with real estate. I also did mortgages for a while too. So.
Michael Williams.
Yes, I'm a small business owner on Mike's Food Land in Westmoreland and Mike's Food Day in Red Barn Springs. Have been for 38 years.
All right, and then we'll go over here to Marshall.
All right, my name's Marshall Wright, building official for Sumner County, Tennessee, from Monroe, Louisiana. I spent 3 years there as a deputy building official for Monroe. And then I served as the building official, planning and zoning director for Litchfield, Illinois for 7 years before me and my wife, 3 kids, made it to Sumner County to accept this position. So if I haven't been inspecting, then I've been a builder. So that's my career, either a building or inspecting. So.
And this is Todd, our building and codes inspector, who's our secretary for today.
Yeah, been pretty much in this area my whole life and was in insurance for Nationwide in Harleysville for many years and met Marshall at church and took on a job as property maintenance inspector and whatnot for the building codes department.
And my name is Steve Weiner. I'm the staff attorney for the county. Once I get to the election of the chairman, which is coming up next, I will turn it over to whoever you all elect as chair, and we will proceed from there. So that brings us up to that. Election of officers, discussion about chairman.
I'd like to make a motion that we vote to move the meeting to next month and then vote on a chairman and a vice chair at that point after we've gotten to know each other a little more thoroughly.
I think we need to have so you want to,
Well, just a voice vote would be fine.
is there unanimous consent on that?
I would
We
just
can't
say that
proceed with
we
it.
have no pressing petition right now, so.
We can't proceed with any other business until we elect a chair.
Okay.
So that's the issue we have right now.
I'll withdraw my motion then.
Okay. Anybody interested in being the chair? Any volunteers?
There's a lot of knowledge around this table. I'm already figured that out. Construction knowledge.
Can we nominate somebody?
Sure.
I nominate the guy who wanted to put it to the next meeting.
I think that's what he was. I'll second it if he's okay.
All right, any more nominations? Declare nominations are closed. All those in favor of Barry Briley as the chairman, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. Turn it over to you, Mr. Chairman.
Well,
So,
That'd be a lesson to you.
I just
that'd be
want
a lesson to me.
I just want to give you a heads up here on this. I looked at the agenda here, and I'm going to make a couple of recommendations for amendments to the agenda to kind of make your lives easier and have better organization to all this. What I'd recommend that we do is order it this way. What I think it should be a good idea to have, after you adopt the agenda, have public forum, followed by Marshall's presentation, followed by the new guidelines and procedures, followed by discussion of the next meeting date, followed by a motion or an adjournment item.
Okay.
Is that agreeable to the chairman?
Absolutely, yeah, I
Okay.
believe we go that way. The only exception to that I would have, typically we open these things with a prayer and a pledge.
No problem, yeah.
So,
You want to do that first? That's,
that being said, if Mr. Genung would say a prayer, that
we have, right.
Dear God, that we hope and listen to your wisdom. Let this be a united and a charitable taking. We wait for you. Thank you. Thank you.
Amen.
And
I suppose I don't see a flag, but.
So, yeah. I don't see one either. Imagine what
There's
imagine.
an imaginary flag for now, right? Mr. Quinn, if you could lead us in the pledge.
Well, I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Make sure we'll bring one next time. So my recommendation is to you and to the committee is that you all adopt the agenda as I suggested with any modifications you see that are appropriate.
Is there any discussion or any modifications anyone has to add to the agenda? Without that, I think we'll take a voice vote to adopt it.
I just need a motion to adopt in a second.
A motion
I
to
make a
adopt.
motion. Yeah.
All right. Can take the vote.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All
The
right.
ayes have it. Okay, then you,
Public forum was.
public forum, we don't have any sign-ups on that sheet, so I guess we'll move along. Mr. Marshall.
Yes, sir. Thank you all for really stepping up and doing a public service here. Like I said earlier, I know and recognize there's a lot of knowledge around this table of construction, and I welcome it. I welcome it as a building official, because in my position, I have to make a lot of decisions that have far-reaching implications, and a lot of times I need somebody to bounce ideas off of, and not just bounce ideas off of, but take that responsibility from me, and as a board, come up with a general consensus of what the code actually should be interpreted, because I can misapply a code, I can misinterpret a code, and I think there's safety in numbers. So there's a lot of wisdom in this around this table, and fortunately for Sumner County, we haven't had a need necessarily to convene the Construction Board of Appeals in the 9 years I've been here, but tomorrow we could. And there has been a few situations where things could have went before Construction Board of Appeals, but at the very last minute of the last hour, we were able to work it out. But I would prefer, before we get to that point with me and a contractor or a homeowner, that just, pass it on to the Construction Board of Appeals and let them make a decision. And so I'm an ex officio member of the Construction Board of Appeals. I'm here mainly to give advice. I don't have any voting authority, but I'm here to present the evidence, you know, as I see it on behalf of the county. So you will never hurt my feelings if you vote against what, you know, the information I'm providing. Okay, so with that said, I'd like to give maybe 10 minutes of just a background of the building codes in a couple sections and the building codes that refer and talk about the need for Construction Board of Appeals. I could do it as paraphrasing, but I don't think that's the best way to do it. I'd like to read some of these things verbatim and below it read some commentaries which breaks it down what somebody like me can understand the code. So if that's all right with you, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to go ahead and share some information and background on.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
thank you, sir. Some of you may know that before the International Code Council created the international codes, those are the codes that Sumner County uses, the same codes that are used across the United States and several other countries. There were 3 legacy codes, the BOCA codes, the Southern Building Codes, and ICBO codes that made up the codes across the United States. But in order to form a unison of codes across the United States, those codes merged in 1972 to work on consolidating the codes across the United States. In 1994, they formed the ICC codes, the International Code Council, and when they did that, then the 3 legacy codes was done away with. So most everybody uses the ICC codes or the NFPA codes, National Fire Protection Association codes. Most fire departments use those. But even the NFPA codes and ICC codes are 2 separate code families that they are very harmonic in the code language. So you don't see a lot of things that disagree in both codes. Just that the NFPA codes are designed for the fire department, and the ICC codes are designed for building, electrical, mechanical, energy, fuel, gas, that kind of stuff. And that's what the Sumner County has adopted. We have adopted the ICC codes to enforce in Sumner County. We haven't adopted any NFPA codes because we don't have a full-time fire department. Sumner County doesn't have a fire marshal and fire inspectors or anything like that. So the only code from the NFPA that is used in Sumner County is the NFPA 70, which is the National Electric Code, which the state of Tennessee permits and enforces in Sumner County. The local building department for Sumner County does not permit and inspect the electric in Sumner County. That's done by the state. I'd like to read from page 1-3 of some code sections. It will be the first page, and it will be highlighted in red, R101.3. The purpose of this code is to establish minimum requirements to provide a reasonable level of safety, health, and general welfare through affordability, structural strength, means of egress, stability, sanitation, light and ventilation, energy conservation, and safety to life and property from fire and other hazards, and to provide a reasonable level of safety to firefighters and emergency responders during emergency operations. Drop down a paragraph, and the commentary says, like any code, the written text is subject to interpretation. Interpretation should not be affected by economics or the potential impact of any party. The only consideration should be the safety, health, and welfare of occupants and emergency responders' safety. This language is basically harmonic with the Sumner County zoning resolution. When somebody goes before the zoning board of appeals to appeal a decision, it can't be based on finances. It has to be based on safety, very similar to what the code section says there. And I flip the page, and I'm looking at the bottom right. It says page 1-23, and it refers to the Board of Appeals, section 112. In general, in order to hear and decide appeals or orders, decisions or determinations made by the building official relative to the application and interpretation of this code, there shall be and hereby created a Board of Appeals. The building official shall be the ex officio member of said board, but shall not have a vote on any matter before the board. The Board of Appeals shall be appointed by the governing body and shall hold office at its pleasure. The board shall adopt rules of procedure for conducting its business and shall render decisions and findings in writing to the appellate with a duplicate copy to the building official. That's where we are right now. The county commission has voted to appoint members to the Board of Appeal, but it says the board shall adopt rules of procedures for conducting its business. So it's going to be up to the board to come up with the rules and procedures and adopt them, okay? I can continue reading. This section provides aggrieved parties with a material interest in the decision of the bidding official a process to appeal such decisions before a Board of Appeals. This provides a forum other than the court of jurisdiction in which to review the building official's actions. A Board of Appeals is to be created by the jurisdiction. The primary function of the Board of Appeals are the hearing and acting of the appeals of orders and decisions the building official has made on the application or interpretation of the code. The building official is an ex officio member. I don't want to sound redundant, but we'll skip on down. The building official is skip on down a little bit more. To the next paragraph, and it starts out, while this section allows literally any person to appeal a decision of the building official, in practice, it has been interpreted to permit appeals only by those aggrieved parties with a material or definitive interest in the decision of the building official. An aggrieved party may not appeal a code requirement per se. I want to slow down there a little bit. I get caught mouth real easy. Excuse me. This is important. An aggrieved party may not appeal a code requirement per se. The intent of the appeal process is not to waive or set aside a code requirement. Rather, it is intended to provide a means of reviewing a building official's decision on an interpretation or application of the code, or to review the equivalency of protection to the code requirements. Skip on down a couple of sentences. The board must establish procedures for electing a chairperson, scheduling and conducting meetings, and administration. R112.2, limitations on authority. An application for appeal shall be based on the claim that the true intent of this code or the rules legally adopted thereunto have, number one, been incorrectly interpreted. Number two, the provisions of this code do not fully apply. Or number three, an equally or good or better form of construction is proposed. The board shall not have authority to waive the requirements of the code. The board is not allowed to set aside any of the technical requirements of the code. However, it is allowed to consider alternative methods of compliance with the technical requirements. And then it says, see section 104.11, I've attached that, but and we're not going to go into that, but it basically states that the board can allow a petitioner to if the petitioner can prove to the board that an acceptable alternative to the code either meets the intent of the code or exceeds the code. And R 104.11 talks about test and reference standards. And this can get really involved here. A reference standard, there's thousands and thousands of reference standards in the code books in the back. And a reference standard is like ACI, American Concrete Institute, API, American Plywood Association, DOC, Department of Commerce, and FEMA, and it just goes on and on. So whenever the code references one of them, that becomes an extension of the code. So when I talk about, or anybody refers to the building codes, it's vastly more than what's in this code book. Even the manufacturer's installations and instructions are an extension of the code. So there's a lot of digging, a lot of research that you may have to do to come to the proper conclusion. And really, and that's really all I want to really share with you about where we're at and where we're going with this as my conclusion, but to kind of give you a sense of the responsibility that the board will partake of whenever somebody appeals to the board for a decision. Thank you very much.
Sir.
Can I ask a question to him? Is it okay?
Oh,
Can you, I don't want to dig up old bones, but give us an example of where you thought it was gonna go to the Board of Appeals. I know that's a deep subject, and I know there's probably 1,000 of them, but
All right,
just an example.
I'll give you an example. The code says that homes require drip edge, okay? Now, a home, you'll see homes that they'll take their aluminum fascia for the fascia board and they'll break it. And when they break it, they'll have a little beak in it. And they'll tuck it up there and they think that suffices or satisfy the code. Well, it does not satisfy the code. You know, and I won't go into why it does not, but it does not meet the intent of the code. And something like that could have went before the Board of Appeals, but before it did, the contractor agreed with the people who own the homes to go back and fix the problem. So something.
That's a simple thing, but it's big.
Yeah.
A lot of water damage.
Yes.
I have a question.
absolutely, I recognize you.
Okay, my question is this, you know, it's easy to see the way things are built, you know, how they're constructed, and that side of this. But what about, you know, and I'm new to this, okay, so forgive me, but how do we take into consideration the environmental and the social cost to a community based on what you're doing and where you're doing it? The interpretation, safety matters, like if you build a high-speed racetrack at the end of a residential street where all the kids play in the street, you know, how do we tie these other things together into what we're building?
I think that's the county
And that would be
commissioners.
zoning issues
Yeah.
and not necessarily related to construction appeals, so that'd be a whole nother committee, but,
Yeah.
okay, any other questions for Mr. Wright?
Mr. Chair, we did leave off one portion of our agenda
To
here.
elect a vice chair.
Right. So what I would suggest is that if you ask for unanimous consent to amend the agenda to add that item immediately following Mr. Wright's presentation, which should be right now.
Can we get unanimous consent
We
to
have a
agenda?
motion and a second. And
Can I get a motion for unanimous consent to agenda?
yes.
Second? Okay, we got it.
All those in favor?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so now we're at the vice chair part.
All right, and then we need to elect a vice chair. Is there anybody that wishes to participate as vice chair?
I'll do it.
All right, absolutely.
Somebody got nominated.
We got good,
Nomination?
Good.
we got a nomination?
Oh,
for-
yeah. I second.
All right, good. All those in favor?
Aye.
The ayes have it. Mr. Vice Chair.
All right.
And then where were we going from there? It's just discussion on our rules, correct?
The next thing would be the new guidelines and procedures discussion. And just to give you guys an idea of how this is, you have to have a motion to discuss in a second, and then we vote on it to discuss this, and then we'll just have a discussion on this item, and you can recognize members as you see fit. So that's the steps for this.
All right, so somebody give me a motion to discuss.
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All right.
Take the vote.
So, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right.
Now we're just opening this up for discussion on our rules of which we'll conduct this committee under, I'm assuming. I believe this operates under the Robert's rules generally.
I was going to mention that. I was reading through these rules today. If you go to the second page where it says rules and procedures, I was going to make a suggestion that you add to the end of that something to the effect of this committee will follow Robert's Rules of Order, current edition. So that would be my suggestion as for that.
Okay. So we need a motion to add that to the,
Let's go ahead and just finish up our discussion here, and we can just do this as a package at the end if they're all agreeable. My suggestion to you.
okay, absolutely. So anybody else have anything they want to add to this as far as discussion on our rules? How we want to conduct our meetings and,
Also, I would note, which is compensation of members. I would suggest that be stricken and have something to the effect of members will not be compensated. You're all doing this out of your kindness of your all's hearts, here, so.
okay, I agree with that.
And,
Guess I need to take notes on this. so.
for where it says chief appointing authority, Marshall mentioned that earlier. I would also suggest that you change that to the county commission, since they appointed you guys. So we can, it's a technical change with that. And also maybe discuss a meeting calendar too.
Okay. So I guess we want to vote on all of your recommended amendments to this at this point. Can we just vote on them as a group?
Well, I might want to clarify the meeting schedule,
Okay.
what you all want to do for that before we.
Well, as of right now, we don't have anything scheduled, so I would, we're not setting this on a monthly.
Well, what I would suggest is that you schedule for once every 1 or 2 months, and if you don't have anything,
Okay.
you can just cancel the meeting, and then, do
right.
it. That's my suggestion to you all.
All right, anybody got any ideas on when we want to meet?
Once a month.
All right. So can I get a second on that? Second, once a month. 27th, or would it be with the third Tuesday?
Whatever you got works for you guys. This is your all's committee.
We want him here.
We'll be here we'll be here whenever you want us to be here.
The once a month is just until we voted on the rules and guidelines, then after that, it would be whenever there's a petition or, because I'm not sure.
So what I suggested is that there'll be a meeting on the schedule every month, But if you don't have any items before the board, you'll just cancel the meeting, and you can send notice to IT and to us to get that canceled.
Maybe if we could just say once a month as needed, right, just to.
I think it'd be a good practice to have a set of regularly scheduled meetings so that you don't run into issues with special call meetings because the requirements for those are quite a bit more substantial than regularly called meetings. But that's just my suggestion.
So I propose the third Tuesday of every month. Can I get a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Third Tuesday every month.
Always same time, 5 o'clock in this room?
5 o'clock. And what was your next recommendation there? Is that
I was just suggesting that if someone wants to make a motion, if the board is satisfied with the recommendations that I made, or if you have any additional recommendations, now would be the time to discuss that, and then we'll just package all that together and make one motion to adopt as amended.
All right, so open it up for discussion. Does anyone have anything to add? Mr. Janone?
Very, I guess I've been around a lot.
Yes.
And if things have changed, every time I go from one place to the next,
Mhm.
and if people come in, the contractors, and try to make us, the board, responsible for what they want to do. It's up to them to convince us that what they're doing is the right thing.
Yes.
And then we have the right to say yes or no. And so we're not becoming their agent. We are the people's agents. We are here before the citizens. And I don't care if it's a long drawn out group of saying that we want this. Well, if it does do that sometime, all you can do is say that we're going to incorporate that to this. We don't have to listen to the person who says, I know this, I'm going to do this. Does that make any sense? It's solely for protection of us not taking our time trying to solve the contractor's problem.
Yes, sir. I believe what you're saying is that we have an obligation to follow the codes and the way they were written, and our obligation is to the taxpayers in this county, not to appease any contractor or anybody that it's his.
And we see them come in and day after day saying, I want to build this.
Yes, sir.
How do I do it? I'm not going to tell you unless you want to put $10,000 in my pocket on research.
Yes, sir. Duly noted.
I agree with him.
Yes.
Right, with what he said.
Absolutely. So I guess we need to, at this point, if nobody has anything else, just move to adopt the recommendations of legal counsel. So if we can get somebody to make a motion.
So,
I'll make the motion.
okay.
Second.
Okay.
There's another member, Wally Gilliam.
I'm sorry, did you say a while ago?
You are the member, Wally Gilliam.
Oh, wow.
There you go. There's a chair
Here you
right
go,
there,
Wally.
sir.
So we got a motion with a second. All those in favor? All those opposed? We got it. So we're going to adopt the bundle. If you can give me a copy of everything that you.
Right, we can do that, and I would make a suggestion just for you guys to review this over the next month, because something might come up to you that might make sense to add to this. So I would suggest keeping this as an old business for next month. That's my suggestion to you.
Yes, sir.
There's no motion for that, just, the chair's there.
I believe we need to set some guidelines on public comment also, don't we? So whether people can speak on an agenda item or.
As of July 1, state law requires that you provide public forum for agenda items.
Yes.
So how long you want to give and all that,
I think we need to set our guidelines as far as how long we want to allow.
But the thing is, that's not on our agenda for today. So, I mean, if we want to reopen that, I know this is kind of trial by fire right here for most of us.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
But if you want to reopen the agenda to do that, I would, suggest that you do that if you want to discuss that item.
I think we'll just move it to the next meeting then.
But it has to happen next month, regardless of whether you adopt a policy on that or not.
Mhm.
And I would suggest, since we don't have a policy, it'll be in the chair's discretion for the timing and so forth for that. So just keep that in mind.
Well, I'll tell y'all might want to go. I'm inclined to let people speak, so.
Mr. Chairman, well, Steve, are there available Robert Rules of Order handbooks that we can provide to?
Yeah, you can order them on Amazon. They're, I ordered one a few months ago. I'm not sure how much it was. But there's also cheat sheets that I
Audio
recommend.
book, you can get a brief.
There's cheat sheets. There's one I keep in my desk drawer for the most common items. But I would suggest that you, at least the chair, invest in a copy of
Yeah,
Robert's
sure.
Rules.
I mean, not to rust off, we'll get this thing going. All right. With that, what do we have next?
So you've gone over the new guidelines and procedures, gone over the presentation, discussed when the next meeting will be. So there's I believe, only one other motion.
Motion dismissed.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All those in
Meeting's adjourned. I don't have a gavel, so we.